This evening, at the Stade de France in Paris, Liverpool and Real Madrid will lock horns, at the end of which, either the Reds will emerge victorious, moving level with AC Milan on 7 Champions League titles, or Real Madrid will be crowned as kings of Europe yet again, extending their lead as the most successful team in the history of the competition that they consider to be their own, with their 14th crown. I'm getting pretty excited just talking about it. Whatever the outcome though, it is likely that legends will be made, villains created, and if the last time these two teams met in a Champions League final is anything to go by, tears will be shed. So in this video, ahead of many more legends being born this evening, I thought it would be fun to take a look at a number of existing Champions League icons and speculate, hopefully with some degree of scientific method, as to what they might be worth now. I have done 3 of these videos in the past, one in 2018, one in 2020, and one in 2021. And though they are mostly just a bit of fun, people seem to love them. Well, most people. Some disagree with evaluations, get very angry about it, and then leave a comment describing how they would disembowel me if they had the chance. Alright, that was admittedly just one person, but it was oddly specific and, well, admirably well thought out. The bloke had clearly given it some serious consideration. All I can say is that, as a lesson for life, try to avoid upsetting Celtic fans when it comes to Henrik Larsson. Right, back to my valuations. Just so that there is no confusion, I am valuing each of the Champions League legends based upon what their valuation would be in 2022 at the age of 25. The valuation is based upon their real-life talent, careers, and achievements, but specifically at the age of 25. Lots of people ask why I don't just pick the player's prime, but other than that being fairly subjective to begin with, the fact that some players peak at 18 and others at 35, and transfer valuations are so intrinsically tied to a player's age, I just don't think that would be fair. What's more, valuing players at 25 gives us an interesting snapshot of their careers at that time. We get to see whether they were early or late bloomers, and, well, personally, I just find it much more interesting. It's also the age at which Neymar joined PSG for a world record-breaking fee in 2017, which is a useful benchmark for some players. So, yeah, it just works, alright? Especially with the 7 legends that I've picked out for this video. Honestly, you are in for a treat. Okay, without further ado then, following an introduction that was so long I'm surprised the Champions League final hasn't actually kicked off yet, here are 7 UEFA Champions League legends. What would they be worth in 2022? 7th, Clarence Seedorf, £95 million. When it comes to Champions League legends, they don't come much better than Clarence Seedorf. The only man to win the Champions League, or European Cup, with 3 different clubs, Seedorf got his hands on old big ears at Ajax, Real Madrid, and twice at AC Milan, giving him as many Champions League crowns as Lionel Messi. Further to that, Seedorf started and played a key role in every single one of the 4 Champions League finals that he won. A magnificent footballer and, comfortably, among my favourite midfielders to watch whilst growing up. When I am finally asked to do Soccer Aid, and it is frankly a disgrace that they still haven't asked me yet, I want to be in a double pivot with Clarence Seedorf. I know that it is normally England versus the rest of the world, but I'm sure something can be arranged for a big hitter like myself. It speaks volumes about Seedorf's versatility that in 4 Champions League winning finals, he played in 3 different positions, on the left, right, and in central midfield. Personally, I liked Seedorf best in the middle, where his incredible combination of skill, intelligence, and industry really came to the fore. Silky on the ball and tireless off it, Seedorf could slot into any team in the history of world football in any one of the midfield positions, and he would look right at home. And there aren't all that many footballers who you could say that about. With that in mind, a valuation of £95 million might actually seem a little low, but there does seem to be a ceiling on how much teams will pay for midfielders. Furthermore, at 25, Seedorf's reputation had not yet fully peaked. In 1999, aged 23, Real Madrid foolishly sold Seedorf to Inter Milan for €23 million. A big fee at the time, just a little under half the existing world record fee, which was also paid by Inter for Christian Vieri. Seedorf turned down Manchester United to supply the likes of Vieri, Roberto Baggio, and Ronaldo in Milan. But despite that remarkable forward line, the club failed to win a trophy in Seedorf's 2.5 seasons there, before Inter, also very foolishly, sold Seedorf to rivals AC Milan in a swap deal for Francesco Cocco. It was at AC Milan that Seedorf probably went on to play his very best and, certainly, his most iconic Champions League football, earning his first Ballon d'Or nomination in 2007. Had Seedorf had that kind of reputation at age 25, you could easily justify a valuation of 115 to even maybe 130 million pounds. But whilst I think it would be a bargain, 95 million pounds seems about right to me for the Dutchman, based upon the stage of his career that he was at in 2001. 6th, Raul Gonzalez, 155 million pounds. I think the perception of Raul Gonzalez, outside of Madrid at least, may have been somewhat distorted by Cristiano Ronaldo's mind-blowing 9 seasons at the Santiago Bernabeu, in which he comfortably broke Raul's record as Madrid's all-time leading goalscorer, despite playing far fewer games. Being less prolific than Cristiano Ronaldo really isn't much of a criticism though, and it is worth noting that Raul was never an out-and-out goalscorer. One of the most intelligent forwards of the last 20 to 30 years, Raul played his best football as a second striker, and he was as proficient at creating chances as he was at finishing them. With that in mind, his record of 404 goals in 942 games and 323 goals in 741 games specifically for Real Madrid looks rather more impressive. I also think that Raul was unfortunate, in terms of his legacy, to just miss out on Spain's golden generation, leaving him with no international silverware despite his 44 goals from 102 caps. Raul is actually just a year younger than Clarence Seedorf, meaning that he turned 25 in 2002. There are some Spaniards who feel that, had Raul not been injured in the round of 16 stage at the 2002 World Cup, Spain could have won that tournament, or at least navigated that controversial quarter-final defeat to South Korea and set up what would have been an evenly matched semi against Germany. Raul was undoubtedly Spain's star man in 2002, despite the fact that he only turned 25 at that tournament. Named as La Liga's breakthrough player in the 1994-95 season, Raul had already scored 190 goals in 389 games for Real Madrid by that age, and he was the runner-up in the Ballon d'Or in 2001, behind only Michael Owen. Raul was named as the best Spanish player in La Liga, a record equaling 5 times in a row before he had turned 25. It is difficult to fully put into words quite how bright his star shone in Spain at that time, but that stat does do a decent job of it. Hence, the enormous £155 million valuation that I've given him. It's incredible to think that summer, in 2002, Raul would be joined by the best player in the world in the form of Ronaldo, in a team that already had Luis Figo, Claude Makelele, and Zinedine Zidane. Yet, in Ronaldo's 4 seasons alongside Raul up front in Madrid, Los Blancos only won 1 La Liga title, no Champions Leagues, and no Copas del Rey. In terms of Raul's legendary status within the Champions League, just in case you were in any doubt on that front, he won the tournament 3 times at Real Madrid, and he ranks 5th in both the all-time appearance and scoring charts. 5th, Yeshi Dudek, £15 million. We step away from record-breaking fee territory in 5th place, but we do so for a man who is no less of a Champions League legend. Jerzy Dudek may not have as many Champions League appearances as Clarence Seedorf and Raul, and he may only have won 1 Champions League title at all. But you could certainly argue that Dudek played a more decisive role in his team actually winning the Champions League than either of those two ever did. You might not expect to emerge a hero from a Champions League final in which you concede 3 goals during the first half, but that is exactly what Jerzy Dudek did. When most people think of Dudek's heroics in that game, they immediately think of the Bruce Grobbelaar-inspired antics to put AC Milan's players off in the shootout. But the key moment was actually in the 117th minute, when Dudek pulled off a stunning double save to deny Andrei Shevchenko. Dudek had made one or two mistakes in that game, but after that double save, he just looked off into the distance and nodded, while Shevchenko held his head in his hands. At that moment, contrasting those two reactions, you just felt as though there was a mutual understanding that this was going to be Liverpool's night. Sure enough, the final penalty in the shootout, of course, saw Dudek deny Shevchenko to win Liverpool the Champions League. So that is his legendary status confirmed. But Dudek was already 32 years old for that night in Istanbul. At 25, Dudek had only just won his first cap for Poland, literally the previous month, and he was just about to finish his first season of first-team football playing for Feyenoord. The previous season, Dudek failed to register a single appearance, but he replaced Edgar Hui, who departed for Chelsea, as Feyenoord's number one in 1997-98. Dudek had a solid debut campaign, which, combined with his relatively young age for a goalkeeper, led me to his £15 million valuation. Over the next couple of seasons, though, Dudek played probably the best football of his career, twice winning the Eredivisie Goalkeeper of the Year award before making his £6 to £7 million move to Liverpool. At that stage, maybe Dudek's valuation in 2022 could have risen to around £25 to £30 million, but I do think that is probably the limit for a keeper playing in the Eredivisie, unless they were winning those awards at 18 or 19 years old, or were to do something truly outstanding at international level. Fourth, Filippo Inzaghi, £99 million. From a victor in that 2005 Champions League final to a man who played for the losing side, it is worth noting that Filippo Inzaghi wasn't actually in the AC Milan squad that evening, having missed most of the 2004-05 season through injury. He returned for AC Milan for a replay of that final in 2007, this time scoring both goals for the Rossoneri in a 2-1 win, as they banished those memories of Istanbul to reclaim their European crown. Inzaghi was actually 33 years old when he won AC Milan the most recent of their 7 European triumphs, and Inzaghi's second. His first came 4 years earlier, aged 29, when AC Milan beat Juventus on penalties at Old Trafford. Inzaghi's record in the Champions League, and in finals more broadly, was absolutely sensational. In 81 Champions League appearances, Inzaghi scored 46 goals, giving him a better goals per game ratio in the competition than the likes of Andrei Shevchenko, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and Thierry Henry. A little older than the likes of Seedorf and Raul, Inzaghi turned 25 in August 1998, at the beginning of his second season at Juve. Juventus paid £10 million to sign Inzaghi after he won the Serie A Player of the Year award, the Serie A Golden Boot, and scored 25 league goals in his last season at Parma. In his first season with Juve, Inzaghi struck 27 times in 46 games in all competitions, prompting Emiliano Mondonico to joke that it's not Inzaghi who is in love with goals, it's the goals that are in love with him. I guess we can blame Emiliano for the 7,000 utterly dreadful Zlatan Ibrahimovic jokes that have followed since then. Surprisingly, despite winning all of those accolades in Italy, which was the toughest league in Europe at the time, Inzaghi didn't receive a single Ballon d'Or vote until 2007, which somewhat exposes the flaws of the Ballon d'Or voting system, given that the Italian probably had 10 seasons or years that were better than that one. Clever, instinctive, and rapid over short distances, Inzaghi was probably the last truly world-class poacher in football, a position that was already dying out by the time that he retired in 2012. It is for that reason, in terms of how little Inzaghi contributed outside of scoring goals, notorious for his lack of defensive work rate, something that a lot of top managers now simply would not tolerate, that his valuation falls just shy of the £100 million mark, and is some way behind Raul, who had a very similar goal-scoring record. Still, at 25, he would surely have to be worth more than the £97.5 million that Chelsea paid for Lukaku. Third, Didier Deschamps, £60 million. Probably the most difficult valuation in this seven, it is always tough to value defensive midfielders. Whilst there have been some massive valuations for the likes of Declan Rice and Aurelien Tchouameni in recent years, we are yet to see particularly a defensive midfielder, rather than more of a creative midfield pivot or deep-lying playmaker, transfer for a truly enormous fee. At the age of 25, Didier Deschamps had just begun his last season at Marseille. A year earlier, at the age of 24, he captained Marseille to glory in the Champions League, as the Olympians beat AC Milan 1-0 to become the first, and indeed still the only French team, to be crowned as European champions. Unfortunately for Deschamps and Marseille, the Ligue 1 title that Marseille also won that season would later be stripped from them as the result of a match-fixing scandal. And when Marseille were punished with Ligue 1 relegation, Deschamps departed for Juventus in a deal reportedly worth almost £5 million. That wasn't pocket change, the world record fee was just £13 million at the time, but I think it reflected the fact that defensive midfielders then, and still now, are always likely to command less of a premium than forwards. Deschamps could easily have one of the greatest Champions League records of all time, having reached 5 finals with 3 different clubs, but the Frenchman only emerged victorious twice, losing 2 finals with Juventus and 1 at Valencia. Never the most creative, Deschamps had tremendous industry and understanding of the game, he was a born leader, and he made very few mistakes. He could do a job for any team in the world, but at 25, before he had captained France to the Euros or World Cup, and had been named as French Footballer of the Year, I think he would struggle to get too many offers, in excess of 60 or maybe £65 million even now. Second, Hernan Crespo, £130 million. A bit like Raul, but to an even greater extent, whenever I see discourse about Hernan Crespo online, and I suspect this is a uniquely English thing, the disrespect for such a magnificent footballer really is off the charts. It's a similar story with Michael Ballack, and both Ballack and Crespo played their only football in England for Chelsea when they were just a little bit past their peak. With that being said, even Crespo, who I think is underrated even more than Ballack in England, when you hear people reflect upon his time at Chelsea, you could be fooled into thinking that he was absolutely hopeless at the bridge. In reality, despite playing second fiddle to Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and then Didier Drogba, and rarely being the Blues' main man, Crespo still bagged 20 goals in 49 Premier League games and 25 in 73 in all competitions, including that stunning winner against Wigan Athletic on the opening day of the 2005-06 campaign. I digress, majorly, because Crespo was already 28 by the time he signed for Chelsea, but I just wanted to get that off my chest. 3 years earlier, in the year 2000, Crespo signed for Lazio 5 days after he turned 25. The fee of £35 million, which was actually broken down as £16 million cash plus Matthias Almeida and Sergio Conceição, who were valued at £19 million, set a world record transfer fee, exceeding the £32 million that Inter Milan had paid for Christian Vieri in 1999. Lazio were willing to stump up such an enormous fee at the time, based upon Crespo's 4 fantastic seasons at Parma, the last 2 of which saw him score 28 and 26 goals each. At the time, it was Crespo, Batistuta and Shevchenko who were the 3 best forwards in Serie A, and 3 of the best in the world, hence why the disrespect of Crespo is so outrageous. In his first season at Lazio, Crespo won the Serie A Golden Boot, and I think a valuation of £130 million probably reflects the upper limit of what anyone would pay for an out-and-out centre-forward, unless they were truly one of the greatest players of their generation, and I'd say Crespo firmly belongs to the bracket of players only narrowly below that. First, Francisco Gento, £75 million. One of the fastest footballers to have ever lived, had Francisco Gento played now, you'd most likely have rival factions of the Real Madrid support base online arguing over whether he was the GOAT or just a speed merchant. Age 19, when he signed for Real Madrid from Racing Santander, whilst I joke, there were actually some people at the time, during the 1950s, when Gento won 5 successive European Cups with Real Madrid, who claimed that all the Spaniard had was pace. Gento went on to prove that that wasn't the case, sticking it out at Madrid until the age of 37, long after Di Stefano and Puskás had departed, by which stage his pace had deserted him a little, and he was able to still exert significant influence upon games in Madrid's youthful, so-called Yaya team as a playmaker. Gento is the only player to have won the European Cup or Champions League 6 times, starring in Real Madrid's 5 successive titles between 1956 and 1960, before captaining the team to a 6th crown in 1966. Gento turned 25 in October 1958, which, whilst he was already a star man for the best team in Europe, came a couple of years before he exploded into real stardom. In the 1959-60 season, Gento scored 20 goals from the left flank, something that was very rare for a winger at the time. His value at that time, and when he made World Soccer's World 11 for 3 consecutive years, had he been 25 then, rather than touching 30, would have to be in excess of £100 million. However, at 25, I just think the ceiling is a little lower. Very few teams play with conventional wingers these days, even less so the top teams, and whilst Gento was so good and so effective that he might prompt 1 or 2 managers to change their minds, I had to factor that into my thinking. Nonetheless, throughout his mid to late 20s, Gento was a regular in the top 10 of Ballon d'Or voting, he scored 31 goals in 88 European Cup games, and he was an indispensable member of the biggest and best team in Europe. So, nor could I go below £75 million, which isn't that much more than Arsenal paid for Nicola Pepe. Gento sadly died in January of this year, aged 88, having served as Real Madrid's honorary president since the death of his former teammate, Alfredo Di Stefano. That is it for today's video. Thank you all very much, as ever, for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and this evening, enjoyed the Champions League final, if you are able to watch it. Hit the like button if that was the case and you did enjoy today's video. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed, of course, it goes without saying, and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on social media, on either Twitter or Instagram, via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so. Cheers.